could you please introduce yourself? And then perhaps when it comes to the context of resiliency in architecture, maybe you can share some experience. What you have conducted any research or study in relation to this interest? Yeah, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much, Gary. So thank you for having me. So my name is Mich. I'm an architectural slash urban designer. So I hold a master degree in city resilience design and management from UVic, Barcelona. I was working with the Business Council for Sustainable Development, BCSD Malaysia. So it was more on the corporate sustainability side. And I'm also the project leader of Time to Rise, which is a project where we receive grants from the British High Commission to communicate climate actions. So in terms of resilience, because this is the main subject that we spend like a year to study, we actually spend a lot of we spend a large amount of time to define what is actually urban resilience. So when we talk about this, because urban system is complex, of course, so we couldn't really encompass everything, and we need to think about like which whose resilience we are talking about and what kind of resilience. So for example, it can be climate resilience, disaster resilience, community resilience, or even like economy. How resilient is your economy? So this is something that we will need to break down further when we talk about resilience. So in a nutshell, I would say it is how fast a system or an urban system can return to its original state, what we call bounce back, or even bound forward when they face certain stress or shocks or challenges. So by this, I also mean like there are different kind of stress or shocks that we might face. Sometimes it's like the more shocking event like terrorist attack, or like some extreme weather events. Some could be more slow onset kind of events like maybe food security issues, etc. So essentially, I think it's the our adaptive capacity, how we can adapt to change. There might also be some kind of trade-offs in between when we talk about um certain characteristic of resilience. So how we define a resilient cities, I think I can share a reference from some recommendation from OECD report on resilient cities. So it's highlighted 7 qualities of resilient cities: reflective, robust, resourceful, flexible, redundant, inclusive, and integrated. So these 7 keywords, many of them is quite self-explanatory, but maybe I can expand a little bit on certain like chosen keywords lah. So for example, like when we talk about redundant, this when I first see this, I would think of this is like something clash with resource efficiency. Yeah, but actually this kind of redundant is what we mean, like maybe when we talk about flood management, we need to cater for 100-year flood event, which means that kind of occurrence that could only happen in 100-year or 500-year event. So this kind of standard is what the infrastructure should achieve when we talk about having more resilient infrastructure. And like for example, the flood event we experienced recently in Masjid Jamek, actually they crossed the line of 100-year flood event for 3 times already. So this this already show you how critical our situation is. So we actually need to cater for more. So this is the character for redundant. And flexible, I think this is also important. Like it may be a bit counterintuitive, because just now I just mentioned having a robust structure means like it's resilient, but also we also need to think of how this can be changed to adapt different kind of situations. So for example, having great infrastructure like the mega dike to address like sea level rise, having this is good, but how about like one day you need to like raise the level a bit high, and you need to like demolish. It's hard, and also the cost is high. So compared to this, maybe we can have a more we can have a better solution. So for example, having a buffer zone formed by mangrove forest. And yeah, so this kind of what we call nature-based solution could be a better, a more flexible solution to that when we talk about flood management. So this is one character I like to highlight. And the last one is not fall under the 7 qualities, but I think it's important as well. It's called decentralized. So yeah, so because like I think it can be applied to like center of administration. So what if like something fail in the center, in the central, we still have the peripheral to support the entire urban networks. So this is the idea of decentralized is also one of the character for resilient cities.
I sort of like kind of think about a saying where a sustainable or resilient architecture are the ones that we don't build, but the one we see after it was built 100 years ago or 50 years ago. We can say it's resilient because until now it's not fall in a way, because those not resilient is no longer here in a way. So when we talk about resiliency as the case study, do you refer to ancient city or ancient building as a case study where why there are certain buildings still able to stand, not because of man-made disaster, but rather because natural disaster. In Italy, for example, there were earthquakes, but there are buildings still standing up there like 400 or 500 years later. So do you think in this case, my question is, because we do have a lot of precedent studies where we look into high tech and it doesn't really prove the time yet because we start building it. But then there are so many low tech, which I will refer to Julian Watson's talk about low tech. So in that case, and then when you are doing a research, how would you see these different traits of technology in shaping a resilient city? And because perhaps in Malaysia as well, you might look into mangrove forest as a example, which is an ancient natural case study rather than looking into like other man-made structure.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question. So because from when you talk about this low tech kind of options, right? Actually, many are advocating using bamboo as the building materials, not only about its durability and also it is also more lower carbon footprint, but other than that, it also uh like by the process when you're planting we're planting more bamboos, the bamboo actually can contribute in flood mitigation. So it's actually quite if you see the whole supply chain, whole value chain, it is a more resilient, more sustainable material compared to others. But also and also like throughout this because last time I actually participated in one of the research project, they are also talking about how using bamboo as a structure could also improve community resilience, because once you are using the local materials, you are improving the local livelihood, and in case there's a flood and then you need to use bamboo to quickly build a relief house that is available. So yeah, they do also mention this kind of dimension when we talk about community resilience. But something very important that I want to point out is when we talk about okay, so just now what you mentioned is more on like the robust side of the buildings. They are robust, therefore they are resilient. But a very good interesting case studies from Japan is also like their buildings are designed in a way where it is fail safe. So they only have like 30 years span, because like the frequent earthquake, when it fail, it doesn't to that extent that it will take human life. So this is also what we call it's resilient as well. So it's one kind of resilience strategy. So in this way, we don't only attribute that the robust characteristic as a resilient, but it's also its strategy, how it can be flexible and adapt to different shocks. During my master, we did public open space resilience framework, where because we chose public open space that for us to access like how resilient it is. So we list out different characteristics of resilience, and we access each different typology of the public space. How well do they respond, and also how the user perceive it, whether it is resilient or not. Because public public open space actually a very good medium for us to study, because when you talk about, like, let's say, like, it's a place for gathering, but if there's any like emergency situation, disaster happen, it's also a place for people to um like assembly as well. And there's also like place for like carry out different functions, is also showcasing your city's identity. If you have more like sculptures over there, so it serves a lot of different functions. And also it plays like to different levels of um resilience it can contribute. So what we did was a framework to access that. So maybe I can share with you the report later. But of course, this ultimately we are talking about the that kind of framework lah. So it's not about only certain, like, because all public space not looking the same. So we only like selling the idea of this framework to access how resilient is this public space, and how we can improve it further to make it more resilient. Yeah, maybe I would talk about the more easier, more obvious example, which is the Chulalongkorn University Centenary Park. So this is in Bangkok, and it's the largest green roof in Thailand. Actually, it's designed in a way like it's a big green park, and it's like a slope, and towards the end there's this retention pond. So with this park, it shows like I think this is a good example for how a climate resilient design should be, because I think it addressed both the mitigation effort and also adaptation effort. So how it can mitigate the climate effect is that with these big green areas, you can bring in more biodiversity, you increase the ecological value, and also you reduce the urban heat island effect with this. And also for the adaptation part, which means in case there is flood, how this space can help to adapt. Yeah, so it helps in water management and flood management as well, because the main lawn act as a big detention area for the rainwater. So in case there's heavy rainfall, it can help to drain the runoff water, and then allow for the space to flood, and also to retain the water, retain the overflow. So this is how it can serve as a adaptive function. And of course, other than this, it also brings in a lot of different side benefit, like, because it's a very nicely designed landscape, so it promotes the use of public space. People can cycle around there, people can walk their dogs around, so provide a space for gathering. So I think this is a very good example of how resilient how buildings with resilient characteristic could be. Yeah. And another one is on Barcelona's super block. So this is actually a sustainable urban mobility strategy. So I think you know that Barcelona is designed in a way of the grids. So the super block is actually closing the inner grids and only allow the traffic to move in the outer circle. And what they do after they close this inner grids is that in the intersection area, they will activate it as a public space. So, and the way they do it, they do not make like permanent change. Is they use tactical urbanism, which means they have like drawings on the floor, they have street furniture, they have put more planter box. They make people want to use the space, and they allow the community have more space to mingle around, to like gather. So with this, while they are planning for something better, because this is not permanent, they are still working for something permanent. They are already providing this kind of solution, temporal solution for the city for this transition. So I think it's a very good strategy. And by this, it actually also address like the main objective they want to achieve, like reduce traffic, improve air quality. And a fun fact, like these things start because that is actually initiated by the public health division, because they want to increase green space per green area per capita. So green area in the city is not enough. They want to increase per capita. So that's why with a very high dense city, this is the creative strategy they can think about to close the roads, have more this kind of space for them to use. So I think it's a good example. I think maybe I can share like one of the priorities. I think moving on, the development in Malaysia should focus on, especially for to address. I think when we talk about resilience, it's mostly about climate resilience now because this is among the key topic lah. So that's why we when we design buildings for climate resilient, we need to address both mitigation and adaptation, not only adaptive part, because like let's say like adaptation means like if something happens, you how well you can adapt, but also how we could mitigate the effect of climate change. So for example, like improving the energy efficiency and how we can practice more circularity, circular economy in terms of material waste, and also in the business model, do we need to really own a house or we can just rent a house? There are a lot of things in this space that we should explore further and not just only following the old kind of model. So yeah, I think we can, yeah, there's a big space for all of us.